Hey guys, how you all doing? Welcome to the latest review. I do hope you're well and thank you ever so much for your continued support. First of all, I want to say a massive shout out to Sweet Chazzy, also known as Eve. Thank you ever so much for your shout out yesterday. I really enjoyed your video and it's wonderful to see that you are going there. Your vibration is really high, just like mine, and it was nice to see that I'm not the only one that is noticing things at the moment in opposition and review. And so today what we're going to do is talk about pi and the apostle zone. Okay, so bear with me a second. There's a few light beings that have joined us to support the calling. I would just call them beings actually, because light beings isn't really true, since all things are made of light, sound, and the review would be vibrational response to reality streams that continue to define who we are and who we claim and what we're there for. Alright, so there are many lessons. Everybody's journey is their own, everybody's pathway is their own, and this is something that just is, and no one can tell you what is for you, right or wrong, either way. Simply is occurring for you, between you, yourself, and the Creator, or you would say me, myself, and higher self, me, myself, and high, or we'd say me, myself, and God's source, or we'd say me, myself, and God, or we'd say the source of all things, or we'd say the supreme being, or we'd say whoever our deity is to support the calling view, okay? And religion itself is unique in the expression, but all things kind of come down to the same point, and that is be kind to each other, do as you're told, consider me, pray, ask for forgiveness, etc., etc. So religion as a dominant factor of earth life, we'd say definitely is. And even if we ourselves are not practicing Judaism, Christianity, etc., we'd say this: every moment is religiously moving, and that's because we're in routine. Okay, and so routine is a very natural part of our life, and it's something that helps us to feel good. Okay. At the point we establish ourselves as sovereign, there is no more time by review, and what presents before us would seem non-authentic. We could say it appears to be my past. Okay, so we'll look at a born-again Christian, for example, and we'll say this: at the time in my life that I did not have God, I didn't know myself at all. Once I became a member of the church and really devoted myself to God, I changed. At that point, nobody recognizes me and says, wow, you've changed so much. Okay, and so this one we would say is definitely supportive, all right, and that is for the person that's gone ahead and delivered themselves and taken themselves seriously by what we know as Christian rites. Okay, the other side of that is people don't get religious, they just decide to change, and that's because they're sick to death of their lives being the way they are and feel that if they make the internal change, they may be more comfortable with what's going on around them but not necessarily for them, or they will present a better version of themselves, and so that would support them and the people around them. And so the argument within that is, my family wants me to become a better person because I'm always down the pub every Friday night getting drunk and getting into fights, for example, right? Now, if the person takes themselves seriously, and that's not a confession because I can see the microchip review point coming up now, which is distinctive. I'll talk about the implants later so people can really understand what's going on with humanity due to the Illuminati, okay, computer programming, belief systems, and everything else that's happening, which may or may not be. I would say definitely is by what I've got proof. Right, I've got evidence. But anyway, the one that decides to clean up their act, this one is seen as defiant because even as they do, first of all, why did you do it, right? And that's the apostle zone. Why did you do it? Okay, the astrology would suggest before Yod that certain placements come up during our life, and that is because someone has seen our birth print review point and decided based upon numerology, astrology, and also higher level perception and review. So a good astrologist would be psychic as well, probably. Okay, and mathematical reasoning, what is more than likely to happen in your life. And that is because you yourself have an issue as you overly identify with who you are based upon someone else's desire. Okay, I want the best for you. That could be seen as the control freak. And as that happens, the DNA starts to understand that you yourself have an issue. Okay. What happens then when your third eye is open, and I'm really trying to push through here, but I'm still filtering layers through my body, which is really difficult for me at the moment. What happens then if your third eye is open, and has always been, you yourself may interpret out the issue that you need to deal with yourself internally, and the external reflection would show you that someone else is participating in the same shit. We could say this, and excuse my language, we could say this, right? And I do swear every now and again because I'm going to be real with myself. Every person may have the same issues if we believe all things are one. On the other hand, if we believe all things are one, there's no issue because there's no more time, right? Which is why this belief system of all things is one, to me, is preposterous, right? All things are one. We would be walking around alone. Everything would be an illusion, even ourselves, because we no longer identify with anything. We're looking at Alzheimer's, okay? And that one is pretty severe because we're talking about ultimate amnesia anchored into the ground, okay? And then everything acknowledging that there's nothing, therefore no more time. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to call up for those people that are interested. It's strand 9, I think it's strand 7, 9 and 11. Okay, so these are the people that have the higher DNA blueprints, right? So we'll say blueprints. Okay, so the Human Genome Review point would suggest about 3.4 strands, and then everything else is junk. Now, I'm not going to go into that now. What we'll talk about is the Starseed DNA templates. So this is where you had a life on Sirius or within Sirius. We'd say the constellation itself could be the result of chaos, and that is you've already lived there, and so you're a Sirian here, which is why you observe nothing but a star cluster, right? Or you could say the equivalent of a galaxy, except you can't determine because of the way that scientists view and say is right. All right, so we could be open-minded at this point and say we're still in discovery, and I think it's the most powerful thing anyone can ever do is to stand back and say this: we are evolving, no one knows for sure exactly what's going on, all we can do is discover, and therefore there's freedom and choice, okay, and you can align to what you believe or not. Therefore, you create your own trajectory and timeline, and you experience differently, and from that point, there's no such thing as nonsense. Okay, so for the higher DNA templates model of Sirius B, we'll call it through now, and we'll say, please locate in me anywhere that I've become defiant because I'm overly identifying with someone else's issue, and ask myself now to release all apostle zones, which is where you're tested by what you believe is right, because there's no such thing as you. Okay, so it can be a positive test or a negative test. It's usually a negative test because of the nature of Jehovah, and cleansing yourself to say this: I'm always obedient to God's law. Okay, so anywhere that you've ever broken the law, even with yourself, you could say this: have I lied in my life? And at that point, your DNA will say yes and no, because if you believe all things are one, there's no such thing as you, therefore there is no lie, and you end up getting tested in the abbreviation zone of review, which is the linear timeline of I know myself to be, okay? And it's really difficult because as you move up and out of belief systems, you're always opposed by law because you're not living in the way they want you to. The problem is with the higher starseed DNA templates, you are living that way. They just can't see you because they see Sirius as ended, okay? So this is what we're going to do. Thank you. Take a deep breath. The human genome is difficult because of the control freak, and it may well be because Christianity has anchored fully through law. If it is you're not recognized by the law as a Syrian at that time, you will be seen as either a previous identity where you've already made the change and dealt with your karma, or someone else's because of the way they judge you and remember you to be. So as long as people have memories of you, they keep replicating you in front of yourself and treat you like a child. For example, your mother and father will always see you as a child. That's because they themselves gave birth to you. right? And that is your earth life, okay? And they don't ever want their children to grow up. That comes from the mother. They always want to control and support you. That comes from both the parents. That's the mother and the father, right? Your siblings will seem as though they never age, except they do. They will always treat you the same because they still have karma to do. So a lot of sensible people, when they make a change in their life, decide to leave and spend some time alone and mature. And by the time they come back, they can't recognize them. At that point, you're accused of being mentally ill, okay? And that's because you won't do what they want and live in their way, which is full of karma and distress, okay? If you yourself have taken the time to really learn about yourself and deal with your inner issues and spend that time meditating, breathing, looking at yourself, making the change, becoming disciplined, and this happens before the breakdown, they will love it for a time until you say this: I'm sorry, but I haven't finished yet. I'm still learning to love myself, okay? And at that point, this is when you've got a problem, all right? So what we don't want is others who are still on their learning path within that arena, which is negativity, firing at people who have already made the change and are supportive of themselves and others, and being accused of the deepest sin, your parents' issues. Okay, now we could say the child will always have issues with the parents if the parents have not done their inner work and their inner child healing. As long as the parents have done their inner child healing, when they give birth to the child will be so calm and peaceful, there'll be no issues at all, okay? And this is due to something called CBT, all right? So this is cognitive behavior therapies, discipline, sometimes even feng shui, okay? And being able to understand the higher level view, which is very simple, of what is actually going on inside people, because they don't pay enough attention to themselves, listen, and can communicate effectively. And why it's capable for a design for life and how it's been perverted because of it. Now, the most obvious view is that the base metals are dissolving themselves at a lower rate than the way you perceive things. Excuse me. And so I looked at the periodic table the other day. Now, we all know that the internet is full of crap and not, and there seems to be two sets of events going on where the real news is out there, and that could be how you perceive what's going on yourself and how you put things together. And then you've got the false news, which is probably definitely occurring as well, and we'd say two different channels, right? So we'd say for some, the false news is the true news, and it would be the true news for some would be how you identify, okay? So you may read and read and read about someone and say, what a control freak, what an attention seeker, okay? This is a load of rubbish. They're covering up something, and it's because you're in higher sensory perception that you see it. Maybe you identify with the fact that you've been like it yourself. The problem is no one's actually been famous. Now, if we look again at transhumanism and the idea that we're forming ourselves because of what we know, as we change, perhaps our physical body does too, and I would say definitely yes, based upon what I'm going through, and that's simply ascension. So we get older, we may look younger. The more we love ourselves, the more the body refuses to participate in aging, okay? And these things are very normal. With so much metal in the body, due to the periodic table either lying to us or not, we could say if there is too much of something, it can't possibly be because it's overwhelming. We would say we evolve, and the last part of us is to turn our liquid metal into gold, okay? And because of that, it vibrates at a slower rate than our perception view, which would be to understand that we know, and that's okay. And no one can tell you why or why you don't know. You simply do. When it comes to things like Alzheimer's, you can't possibly comment on it unless you yourself have it. And even then, what would you want to do? Some would say it's the ultimate way, because within that there can be no lie and everything is new and you're like a baby again. On the other hand, we'd say it's one of the most devastating things anyone can ever experience. I've had it in my family as well. It was what did he have? Hold on, I'm just going to check this 1 second. My granddad had senile dementia, so I'm not too sure on dementia. I haven't looked it up. I know that they forget who their family members are and they forget why they're doing things. why it is that they're doing things, why they're not. I'm going through like a breakdown, sorry, and I have to address this. I'm going through a breakdown of the nervous system at the moment, so it could be due to my mother, who was having a nervous breakdown when she was younger, and so this is coming up through the DNA. So to remember now, your family issues will present as yours, but should you be carted off to court and prison for them? I would say absolutely not. The thing is this, pretty clean cut and knowing, but what about people like William the Conqueror, who is my direct descendants review? So it was me in a previous lifetime, but he himself is my ancestor. Should I necessarily be told off or accused of things because he was on the battleground murdering people, right? So what we have to understand about the DNA is it doesn't give a crap where you are, it's going to show you, and that would be because Eight Almighty is powerful, right? So just to understand a bit more about the DNA and why it's doing the things it is, we would say this: there is no control over it other than praying to God and hoping that we ourselves are forgiven for whatever our ancestors did because of that belief system, sins of the father. I don't think that that's actually supportive of anyone, since they themselves may never be or have always, and that's how we perceive time. If it is we become futuristic because we change ourselves and we perceive the 3D as the past, there's no such thing as aging, but actually travelling to a point where you witness your ancestor because the metals in your body have decided to turn you into a time machine is a bit clever and delicately cool. I would have to say this: rather sit on a train, a plane, or an automobile and do it properly, just like Back to the Future, the movies, than become a physical representation of my own deceit to say that there's no such thing as time, and then blow myself up at every opportunity, physically, internally, and have internal bleeding because my body is not a car. Okay, and so the metals really need to start calming down now, don't they? What we're going to do is we're going to run a flush and release the central nervous system viewpoints. Okay, so that's because of Mars and Jupiter and how it's opposing Uranus. All right, so if you refer to it as Uranus, consider Uranus, consider Uranus, consider Uranus. Okay, Uranus is more within Plutopium, Plutopium, which is where Pluto drives back, but it appears to be going forward, and then annihilates you because of the nature of Anubis. All right, what you have to understand is that the DNA is very complex. Your histories will show you more, but the last thing we want is to be accused of gods when we're simply human beings and then have a war on our hands, which more commonly known as World War III. Okay, I'm just going to stop for the moment. I'm finding it really difficult to speak and my throat chakra's clearing at such a rate that I can't even handle my own notion. I'm driving now and I don't even have a car. Isn't that interesting? I don't even have a license. What I've noticed more than ever is it's like a infoline, right? So an infoline would be shown to you because colour is supporting sound but is never forming, and that's because we're known as creative beings. Okay, so if we say we're co-creating with God, everyone's creative, we'd say the mind is powerful, therefore we are imagining our realities or we're dreaming them up. Within the 4D, we'd say we're definitely sleepwalking, and I'm still investigating that for my PhD. There seems to be an inception point at the back of the neck. Okay, so you're looking at, it's the medulla oblongata, and then it's driving forward and backward to decide the fate of the Apostle Zone review, because Jehovah is important and everyone appears to be a Satanist. Now, I think we need to get some things clear here. All right, Satanism is all about karma. All right, so let's put away the devil for the moment. Let's put away, sacrificing each other on crucifixes. Let's put away, Beltane and Baal's deceit, and we can go on and on. I'm not going to claim and know every demon because I already understand this. So the point is this: if we're all co-creating and there's a belief system of this, there's no such thing as Satanism, because Satanism would show you that there's only earth and review. All right, so it's only your grounded tone and what would be. Okay, so take out all the ghouls and goblins, take out all the demons for a moment and say that Saturn is the lord of karma. Satan is the direct manifestation of that review. Because we're all scared of the dark and demons, Satan would show us that he is the teacher and the Lord of all, and we must be here on the earth, otherwise Satan will take his glory, and that will be us being sacrificed by our own review, and that is to be cleverly important and live life exactly as it is. The more you live life as it is, which is to be a complete and utter arsehole, ignorant, arrogant, facetious, oppositional, defiant, right, selfish, you are within Satan's law and review, which is why you're on the earth, because you're learning. As soon as you leave that, you're no longer part of that satanic refuge point, and you've gone up into what appears to be the Christ consciousness. Within the Christ consciousness, it's equally dangerous because Christ expects a sacrifice of you due to the nature of the Bible. Okay, what we have to understand is that Christ itself is an energy. Okay, Jesus was Jesus of Nazareth. He became Jesus Christ after he was Christed. He received the Christ consciousness after he did his work as a Kundalini master. Okay, and so we look again and ask if there's anyone out there that has the ancient teachings of Jesus. It's probably somewhere within the Judaism review, and that's because they know more than us and they support the calling view of the Elohim, and as a creator God they would say it is definitely. Okay, so it gets very complicated as you move through. More and more religion is showing you that it's all supportive and oppositional, and each one would show that you have to either die, be sacrificed, brutally murdered, right, acknowledge you're in sin and do exactly what God wants no matter what, even if it's your dog, because dog is God spelled backwards, and if you don't, there's a problem. Okay, so again, belief systems and how they're playing on you because of what they know. What we're going to do is we're going to update through the cerebral cortex in level 3. Okay, so level 3 is showing you that there's no more time, but not necessarily human. Okay, so when we talk about upgrading the body, we're talking about the light body. The light body, not the physical body. The physical body is the result of you upgrading in the higher dimensions. So you upgrade your 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 dimensional view. So that's 12-strand DNA. You upgrade this and your physical body will change at the lower based upon what you do, and that is known as the perfected self because you've done the inner work. Okay, so we're working in the higher level DNA body templates, not the human ones. Okay, thank you. Here we go. It looks like a travelling circus review point. It's almost like a train. Okay. It appears to be some level of roller coaster, nemesis, where we are all in lines, and instead of staying separate, we all kind of shuffle forward into each other's bodies to destroy any potential that anyone has ever had in Earth life, so we can move up to the 4th density. The 4th density takes an awfully long time to review. We're looking at a holographic universe in its entirety, and it's about 400 billion lifetime reviews. I mean, you're looking at about 45 years per swing, which is about 59 and 3. What you can do is observe everybody at this point and say it's already accomplished because people appear to be living in the past. At that point, you'll say this: the appearance can be deceiving and there's no one to observe the view because everyone believes they're right. And that's because you're shown who you used to be, and since there are many different people, you've been everyone, and therefore it cannot be important anymore, which means you've already acquired. Okay, so you could say I've definitely been a child, I've definitely been a tree, because the Buddhist in me would say I definitely was. I've definitely been a rock, I've definitely been the rain, right? And that would be showing you the Native American viewpoint. I've definitely been a dog because in a previous lifetime I was probably a Hindu. All right, so what you need to do is look through your body now and you ask your DNA to locate you in every timeline that you've been and every timeline that you've perceived is possible, and say no more time and I'm simply living my life. At the point that you see life as living, it would be. Now, if you're like me and you're very, very psychic, and I know that some of you are, one of my clients, students and friends, did an instalment yesterday, and she's been going through something very similar to me, and we both can't be mad. In fact, she's worked for mental health, right? So this is why it's so funny, because they'll come in and drive and say we're all mentally ill because they can't control the earth anymore, and that's because everyone's being obedient. And at that point, we've got ourselves again, because we damn well know we're right. A lot of my clients and students were nurses, okay, care workers, thank you. People that believe that Reiki is right. Reiki and Seiki, for those of you that understand that one. Okay, so it's ancient Japanese, ancient Egyptian, and Tibetan, which is always ancient. There's no such thing as mental health by our view, because the perception would show you someone else's issue and their memory of you or someone in your family. Okay, and so because it is we're connected through our family genome, or even the 6 degrees of separation, we could be accused of anyone's crap, and therefore it's ours too. I would say this, not if we believe in oneness. Okay, so here we go. I would say separation is all there is, and that's because of choice and the fact that we know better, and we'd say as one, not necessarily one with, okay? One with yourself, one with God, one with the universe. I would say this, as one would give the opportunity to be yourself and choose wise and well, okay? And so if you're talking about choice, there can only be separation in review, and the appearance is an illusion of oneness and review, and we could say both are right, okay? So just choose wise and well where you align. I would say as one, okay? We are as one, and there's no such thing as men and women, because everyone's genitalia is slightly different. There's no such thing as men and women, because everyone's genitalia is slightly different. Therefore, there's no definitive model. We can say as female, as male, but not necessarily male and female, okay? I think we've sorted it. All right, I'm going to stop here, come back later with another instalment. Thank you ever so much for joining me. If you would like to donate this time, and I would appreciate it, because I'm being tested again in poverty due to probably my ancestors or someone that's trying to claim my ID. It is paypal.me/team realignment. Paypal.me/team realignment. Okay, thank you ever so much. Thank you for participating, and I'll speak to you really, really soon. All right, take care for now. Bye-bye.